Hello and welcome to Carmela's Sanctuary of Squirrels. Today I will introduce you to Chuck. This sweet little guy couldn't climb and could hardly walk for falling over. A caring man noticed and brought Chuck here. My name is Suzanne. Stay tuned to find out all the issues poor little Chuck has to overcome. This is Chuck. When he arrived, I thought his only issue was neurological. He couldn't climb or stand up straight without falling over. One thing I noticed right away, though, was that the edges of his ears were thick and crusty. This is a telltale sign of mange mites. He was a bit feisty at first, but I was prepared for that and got him settled down pretty quickly. The first treatment on the agenda was to get some meds into him to start killing off those nasty little parasites. It's always a challenge to get the meds ready with just one hand, since the other is occupied with holding the squirrel. Fortunately, the bottles I keep the meds in open quite easily. I get meds in large quantities, and it's much easier to dispense them from smaller bottles. When I get new meds in, I fill a small glass bottle and label it right away. Chuck took the meds with no fuss. Afterwards, I picked him up to look him over a bit more. It was then that I noticed small black flecks on the white towels underneath of him. I knew right away what they were. Flea larvae. Yuck! These nasty little vermin had hatched overnight while Chuck was sleeping in the warm, cozy tote I had placed him in the night before. Well, that dictated the next treatment. Chuck needed a bath. As you can see, he wasn't very happy about it right up until his body touched the warm water. Then he completely relaxed. I find this happens with a lot of the adult squirrels that I take in. For some reason, the warm bath water really seems to mellow them out. Normally, when I give a squirrel a flea bath, it takes about 5 minutes to get rid of most of the fleas. However, in Chuck's case, he had thousands upon thousands of immature fleas deep in his lush winter coat. I had to be even more thorough than usual. I checked my progress regularly and just kept seeing more and more of them. Consequently, Chuck got an extra long bath. I bathed him for about a half hour. Even so, there were still a lot of fleas in his fur. Likewise, rinsing him took much longer as well. Finally, he was ready to be dried off. So I wrung out as much water as I could, then wrapped him in 2 towels, dried him off a bit, and took him back into the squirrel room. Now I had to thoroughly dry him off, watching for fleas as I did. Once dry, it was time to comb him. Combing helps to pull the fleas and nits through the fur. Once again, this process normally takes 5 to 10 minutes, but with Chuck, I spent another half hour just combing out the fleas. Chuck really enjoyed being combed. I suppose the comb was scratching his itchy skin. A product of the mange mites burrowed under it. But every once in a while I would touch a sensitive spot and he would let me know. He never tried to bite me though, not once. As you can see, he actually decided to help with the combing process and worked on his own hind leg for a bit while I pulled fleas off my nitrile-coated gloves. Whoops, hit a sensitive spot there. He could have bitten me, but he didn't even try. There were actually several times where he could have jumped off the desk and run away from me. He didn't try that either. Most squirrels really object to having their tail combed. Not Chuck. It was all part and parcel of the process, and he didn't seem to mind at all. Once I finished combing him, I applied a few drops of Revolution between his shoulder blades. I needed a cage for Chuck, and every cage in the room was occupied. That meant bringing another cage in from the patio, setting it up, moving Chompers from his previous cage to the new one, because being plastic, it was safest to put Chompers in it since he really can't chew. Then Larry moved from the bottom cage to the top where Chompers had been. I had planned to put Chuck in the cage Larry had been in, but because of the fleas and mites, I didn't want to expose the squirrels directly above him. So that meant moving Shay from the cage under Chompers over to the one Larry had been in. Then I was able to put Chuck in the cage Shay had been in. Confusing? Yeah, just a bit. It took me quite a while to figure it all out. So that brings us back to Chuck. As for the neurological damage he had been brought in for, I couldn't find any bruises or wounds. My theory is that he had a near miss with a car and got a concussion. With time, as the brain swelling goes down, he should regain his equilibrium and balance. When that happens, he will be able to go home to the yard where he was found.